my name's Pam Hess. I'm the executive director of Arcadia. If you've ever gone out the front gates and turned north on Route 1, you've seen a farm to the right just as you get up over the hill. That's us. So Arcadia is a nonprofit. We're dedicated to creating a more equitable and sustainable food system to get at a lot of the issues that she's talking about. I came from the world of journalism. One of the many things that we do, we grow food on our farm. We train farmers, which is what I'm going to be talking to you guys about. Hello. We teach little kids about nutrition and healthy soil, as a matter of fact, sustainable agriculture, that cycle. And then finally, we make food affordable and available in neighborhoods that otherwise don't have access. Mostly up in Washington, D.C. You've heard the term food deserts. That's what we get at. And what we do with that is we have tons of food that we grow on our farm, that we source from other local farms that all work in healthy soils, and we sell a complete diet in neighborhoods that don't have grocery stores, that have low car ownership, and that there's a high use of food stamps, so lower income neighborhoods. Since 2012, we have sold $1.375 million worth of the best, highest quality food from the region in neighborhoods that otherwise wouldn't have access and that grocery stores don't serve because they think those people don't want that food. And we prove them wrong every day and have done for the last 8 years. I bring this up because the first time I went out on our mobile market, I was just fresh out of journalism, and I'll mention that I spent a fair amount of time in Iraq and a little bit of time in Afghanistan, and consequently I spent some time up at Walter Reed visiting people who I knew or that friends asked me to check in on. And of course, a signature injury of that war, at least a visible one, is a lower limb amputation. And so when I went out on the mobile market, that was my context, and I saw a lot of people in the neighborhoods that we serve missing lower limbs, and I thought, wow, there's a lot of war veterans here, and they said, no, this is diabetes. Wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, there have been about 2,000 lower limb amputations as a result of war wounds. In the United States, in any given year, about 70,000 diabetic amputations. And it's all about our food system. It's all about the fact that we aren't getting proper nutrition, and human health is built on nutrition. So I just tell you that just so that you understand a little bit about what we do, but there's one piece of it that I want to talk to you about today, and that's farming. The nation needs 700,000 new farmers over the next 20 years. The average age of the American farmer is now I think 60, and so that means over the next 20 years, 700,000 farmers are going to age out of the profession. They're either going to die or they're going to retire. So we need to replace them if we want to keep eating food, which I think we do, because I'm looking at your plates. We identified, in part because of my experience hanging out with you all downrange, I came away with a real appreciation for your capabilities. The resourcefulness, the ability to just figure a problem out, to identify the problem, the entrepreneurialism, the mental and physical toughness, because farming is hard. All of these things sort of got me to the point where I thought, this is interesting, they can basically do anything. Knowing that we needed 700,000 new farmers, I thought if there's a way that we can provide a path for people to get into this, maybe we can chip away at this problem. So when I fell in on Arcadia, I had the luck of having a couple of staff members who were already thinking this way. We're surrounded on 3 sides by Fort Belvoir, so it's sort of a natural connection. And so Arcadia Farm, right outside your gates here, it's really right outside the Penn's Gate, is a farm that George Washington operated as a veteran himself. Back from the Revolutionary War, this was his farm and this is where he grew food. And in fact, he was an early sustainable farmer. Tobacco had destroyed the land. Tobacco is really hard on the soil, not to mention the people. Super extractive, creates poor soils that your previous speaker was talking about. And so George started planting grains, and this is just a fun little fact. He started planting grains because nothing else would grow there. Grains, it turns out, pull nitrogen from the atmosphere and put it back into the soil, and it feeds the soil. And so he was planting rye and corn and barley and a few other things, and he had a lot left over, so then he started distilling it, and that's actually how he made all of his money. George Washington was a farmer distiller. Distilling is a value-added product of agriculture. So when you go out, if you take a right on Mount Vernon Road, you'll see his distillery, and that distillery used to use grains from my farm. So there you go. So we're on land that George Washington cultivated. We decided that we would use this land and use our mission to train military veterans who wanted to either be farmers or explore farming in a year-long program. So we have 3 training tracks. It's backed by the USDA. The first training track is a Veteran Farm Fellowship. We are currently in the process of trying to down select from 6 incredible people from across the country who want to come work for us for a year as full-time members of our farm staff, apprentice to our professional farmers. It is a on-the-job training program approved by the VA, so they can pull their base housing allowance. We don't pay a whole lot, it's like $12 an hour, but it's an incredible education that you cannot get at other farms because they typically require you to have at least a year's experience, because you can ruin a lot if you're brand new, but we watch you closely. And so you spend that year with, or your 9 months with us, and you pull your base housing allowance. That's one piece. Those Veteran Farm Fellows, we usually have 2 or 2.5. They then participate in our other training track, and that's the Veteran Farmer Reserve Program. This one is made for folks who have full-time jobs, who are still active duty, who are getting full-time medical treatment, or in school full-time. It's 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year. Might sound familiar. I'm a clever marketer. So we pull 20 to 40 people together, same people, the last weekend of the month, and they spend 2 days training with us. And that training includes hands-on cultivation, so you learn how to grow stuff. It's farm academics, so you learn what is it a farmer has between their ears that allows them to actually do this stuff, which can range from crop planning to pests and to, weeding and harvesting and marketing, all the stuff that a farmer would do in their head, not with their hands. We do field trips, which is actually the favorite thing of all of our trainees every single year, where we visit farms all over the region to see different models, including a massive hydroponic model out in Endless Summer Harvest in Loudoun County, so that they understand all the possibilities. So one of our markers of real success is people come in thinking they want to farm one thing and leave at the end of the year thinking, no, I'm going to farm something completely different. Because we want people to have really realistic and successful expectations of what they can get from a life of farming. So we go through this year, then we have another thing that happens 4 times a year, and it's really critically important. Farms are nothing but small businesses, so we have an incredible business trainer who comes in. She's a CPA and a tax attorney who specializes in agricultural operations. So everything from understanding labor laws and setting up your corporation down to what your QuickBooks accounts should look like and how you're going to go about filing your taxes and when you can start taking money off of your taxes for your farm expenses, she walks you through. Then we have another training track that we started in 2018, which is super exciting. We've got more land out there than we can actually farm. The way that we farm is super intensive, focused on soil, building healthy soils at all time. In fact, Veteran Compost is one of our compost providers. So we're not using any toxins, there's no chemicals, there's no pesticides. And we are building the organic matter in the soil, which has an alternative benefit, which is that fixes carbon. So it's an anti-climate change process as well. So we are building really healthy soils, but this takes a lot of work, and we can only do about 1 acre per farmer. So we usually have about 4 farmers. So we're doing about 4 acres at any one time. So we've got extra land. So in 2018, we started a program called the Veteran Farm Incubator for graduates of either of our other 2 training tracks. We have a competitive selection, but they can get up to 1/4 of an acre of our farm, and they can farm it themselves. They get their business liability insurance, they establish their business, they can be there for 3 years. The benefit to them, really low rent, access to our mobile markets and other markets and all the chefs that we know, irrigation, power, greenhouse, vegetable washing station, walk-in cooler, and other business support. So we are taking farmers from maybe I want to be a farmer, I don't know, let me spend a year exploring this 1 weekend a month, all the way up to I am actually a farmer. I just went through, we've had 77 people so far go through the program, through the Veteran Farmer Reserve Program. And we currently have 6 people on our incubator. And out of the 77, more than 30 are now farming professionally. Not necessarily full-time. The average American farmer is only making about $10,000 a year, and they have an off-farm job, but they're growing something on their land. But we have an incredible conversion rate. The reason that veterans are particularly good at this are sort of what I talked about at the beginning. Super resourceful, super resilient. Here's a little story. We have lots of farm interns college kids with man buns that come out and really want to be farmers because it's sort of romantic and cool and they like food, and until it's July and it's 95 degrees and 90% humidity, and then they're like, my knee hurts, and then we never see them again. Obviously, this is not the case with vets, right? You guys have already been through worse in boot camp, and Lord knows if you've been in Iraq or Afghanistan, the heat's not going to bother you, and you're not wearing 100 pounds of gear. You're not wearing 100 pounds of gear, and nobody's shooting at you. So it's generally, farming is a step up in lifestyle. So that's what we do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should tell you. This program is for people who already have farms, or for people who are hearing me speak today and think, that's interesting. If you feel that little spark. Now, here's something else that's important. Farming is a calling. It is not a 9-to-5 job. It is universally among the folks that are in our program. I'll step up here. Universally among the folks in our program, they cite the meaning that they get from being in the military and feeling like they were serving the public with the reason that they want to keep farming. They take that, they want to do a job that is meaningful and that is important and that actually changes people's lives. And they want to do something often that keeps them close to home after so many deployments, something that they can do with their family, something that is sort of a home-based business, something that is about creating rather than blowing things up, something that is creating health, and something that they control. You don't have another boss. You get to decide exactly how you're going to pursue this. So there's all kinds of reasons why people why veterans are particularly well suited to farming if they're interested. And I would encourage you all, we are right now recruiting for our 2020 reserve program. If you all are thinking about doing anything on the agricultural side of this business rather than just the marketing of it, if you're thinking that you want to grow food to sell, you should definitely be in the reserve program, because regardless of what you're selling, with regard to food, you're going to need particularly the business training that we have and the support network. We do have somebody who grows hydroponics in his basement now, and he's selling to a bunch of restaurants in Alexandria. We have people who are raising multiple different kinds of animals, people who are just doing eggs, people who are doing mushrooms, and they're all over the area. Our program has a national reputation. We have a Marine that flies in from California every month on his own dime to participate in the training program. We had a couple from Tennessee that drove in. He's missing one leg and one arm from a green on blue or attack in Afghanistan. They have the very first organic farm in their county in Tennessee. They've also built a cabin for agritourism so people can come and stay overnight. They're doing hops, and his intention is to ultimately build a hops processing facility and restart the regional hops industry in his area of Tennessee, because craft beers are such a big deal. So there's all kinds of things that you might not think about that are agriculture that are in fact agriculture, and stuff that requires a little bit of investment and stuff that requires a lot. Yes. Two sort of related thoughts. One, there's a lot of talk about farming being therapeutic, and it's true. If you have your hands in the dirt, it's a fact that there are minerals that your body needs that can only be absorbed from soil, from healthy soil, from soil. So by having your hands in the dirt, these tend to be also mood-altering chemicals, naturally occurring ones. They make you feel good. There's also something about being outside with the green light spectrum reflecting on you that's mood-altering. So farming is therapeutic for everyone, not for veterans. We do not advertise this as a therapeutic program, but we know it has therapeutic effects. We don't have a medical staff on board. We don't have a psychological staff on board, but we know that
they
people.
Got you, Pam.
I'm sympathetic. They know that they feel better after they're out. We've had one guy who's actually. He's been off and getting more farmer training, and he wants to come back and become our farm fellow. And he had real problems after Iraq with PTSD, and it came to him this cognitive dissonance. He knew that he was there for a good reason. He felt like it was right. He was going to be liberating people from Saddam Hussein, who was a known despot. But he couldn't figure out why people were trying to blow him up, and it really messed with his head. And so he was there. He was, outside of Baghdad. He was protecting the oil refinery outside of Baghdad, and had a lot of scrapes, and just couldn't integrate it back into his life when he got back. He was like, I had this thing happen, and now here I am. Came to our training program, started doing some farming on his own, and told me this. It was pretty interesting and creative way of handling it. He decided that he needed to understand the Iraq War a little bit better, but he'd never been able to sit down and watch a documentary because it was so stressful for him, because his heart rate would go up. So what he did was put on this documentary that he wanted to watch, and as soon as he felt his heart rate going up, he went outside and he pulled weeds. And he pulled weeds for 3 or 4 hours. Then when his heart rate was back down and he felt better, he came back in. And he worked his way through this, and at the end of it, he realized, oh, I get it. I get why they were so mad at us. All right. And he's kind of better. He's a lot better. We have folks who are finding purpose again from this. But what I really want to emphasize to you guys is that we do not see veterans as victims. We see you all as heroes, and not the heroes that everybody talks about, but rather the people who are going to save this country. No one is tough enough to do the hard work of agriculture, except for you guys as a group, and we need you. You guys are going to step right back in and do this work for the country that nobody else is really capable of. This is not charity work that we're doing. We're providing a pathway for you all to do the work that you want to do, which is something meaningful and outside. I found a lot of folks who've been in combat really don't want to be indoor cats anymore. They want to be outside. One of the things that Michael, the guy with missing limbs, told us is that it wasn't his wartime experience that caused him the emotional problems that he had. It was his recovery. So being in a hospital and hearing beeps all of the time, it sounds like maybe you're dealing with some of this.
No, I can relate to that.
Yeah, so he actually tried to go, he's fully ambulatory and had planned on being in the Army for his full career. He was in for about 30 years. He tried going into an office environment, but just couldn't, like all of the machines and the beeping and the noises, and then realized when he went outside and was on his tractor just clearing land, that his heart rate went down and he felt better. So he thought, well, I guess I need to be a farmer so that I don't ever have to go inside again, and his wife handles all the indoor stuff. So there's lots of ways that people kind of get into this, and I want to say that we have people who are just doing eggs, so chickens laying eggs, and they have 200 chickens in their backyard, and they feed them a couple of times a day, and then they sell their eggs in their office. One of the guys that's in our program right now, he's in the National Guard Bureau. We brought him out to a farm. There's this massive farm. It's called A Perfect Day. It is a really interesting model by a very rich young man who is working on climate change and using cattle as a way to replenish and capture carbon in the soil. And the cattle are kind of the value-added product. Like, he's working on climate change, but then he has all this beautiful beef. So we went there and we saw this really elaborate operation. It's very interesting. And that idea snuck into this guy's head in our program. Dave Lauer is his name. The next farm we went to was this hard scrabble, not lush, kind of rough 60-acre farm with about 60 cattle versus 1,000-acre with 1,000 cattle. And that guy was actually a military veteran. I think he was in the Navy. And Dave hit it off with him. And what he's doing now, which is so amazing, and again, the kind of thing that only you people are capable of, he talked that guy out of 15 acres. So he's leasing 15 acres from him, and he's buying 15 head of cattle. And he is going to manage them on this little farm the same way that the guy on the big farm is managing. And what he has here is a control group and an experiment to show that if you manage your pastures differently, what is a kind of hard scrabble ground that doesn't hold water, that's not growing a lot of good stuff, can be transformed into a lush carbon sink with really healthy cattle, just by the way that you manage the cattle. And so he's doing that right now. He doesn't have any farming background whatsoever, but he is right now putting in the water troughs that he needs to in order to implement this mob grazing model that we can talk about. So there's lots of exciting stuff going on, and if in thinking about this you feel a little scared or a little spark or a little curious, join the Farmer Reserve Program. So the reserve starts in January, it's 1 weekend a month, and it does require a tuition, but if you can't pay it, we also have a lot of financial aid. We're lucky enough to have some funding from private sources that can offset the tuition. We set up the tuition so that if we ever don't have our USDA grant, we can offer the program, but just have to charge for it. We're trying to make sure that it is somehow sustaining. But so far, it's pretty easy to raise money for veterans who want to become farmers because, you know, a lot of